Welcome to This Week in Aviation, brought to you by AviatorDB. I'm Mark Preston. A K2 Airways 737-400 freighter is lost over the Arabian Sea. Wreckage located south of Ormara. 5 crew still missing. China rules the Beijing tower, crash a deliberate act, and suspends general aviation nationwide. New first-half data show turbine business aviation fatalities holding flat, as 2 high-profile investigations reach the same question: human factors or hardware. Here are this week's stories. We begin over the Arabian Sea. A K2 Airways cargo jet is missing over the Arabian Sea, and searchers have now found wreckage. The aircraft, a Boeing 737-400 freighter registered Alpha Papa Bravo Oscar India, disappeared on July 7th during a flight from Sharjah to Karachi. 5 crew were aboard. All 5 remain unaccounted for. According to authorities, the crew reported a navigation malfunction before contact was lost, roughly 155 nautical miles west-southwest of Karachi. That triggered a large-scale search involving Pakistani Navy and Air Force units, focused southwest of the city. On July 9th, searchers located debris from flight KTA 1732, about 53 nautical miles south of Ormara, in rough monsoon seas. Investigators have not released any indication of cause beyond the crew's reported navigation issue. What comes next depends on recovery. The flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder, air traffic control transcripts, radar, and ADSB tracks will form the core of the inquiry, and monsoon conditions complicate the effort to reach and raise wreckage from the seabed. The accident draws attention to the aging 737 classic freighter fleet, a workhorse across regional cargo markets where older airframes stay in service well beyond their passenger careers. K2 Airways is a small operator, and a loss of this kind reverberates through Pakistan's cargo community. Cargo operations often draw less public scrutiny than scheduled passenger airlines, yet they carry crews into the same weather, over the same water, frequently at night. For now, 5 families wait, and the search continues. Elsewhere, a very different kind of aviation event has prompted one of the most sweeping regulatory responses on record. China has ruled that last month's crash into a Beijing skyscraper was deliberate, and it has responded by suspending general aviation across the entire country. The crash happened on June 26th, when a light sport aircraft, an Aurora SA-60L, struck the CITIC tower, one of Beijing's most recognizable buildings. This week, Chinese authorities announced that the crash was an intentional act by a 66-year-old pilot, citing unspecified personal reasons. The regulatory reaction is striking in its scale. Rather than target a category of aircraft or a region, authorities imposed a nationwide suspension of general aviation activity. That decision effectively grounds thousands of aircraft and training operations across China, at least temporarily, touching flight schools, charter operators, and manufacturers alike. The case revives long-standing questions about pilot mental health screening and insider threat, this time in one of the world's most tightly controlled airspace systems. Regulators everywhere have wrestled with how to detect a pilot in personal crisis, a challenge underscored by past deliberate acts elsewhere in aviation. The tools available, medical evaluations, reporting requirements, periodic review, are imperfect, and no system reliably predicts intent. What sets China's response apart is its breadth. A blanket suspension following a single event is among the most far-reaching general aviation restrictions ever imposed by a major aviation state. It leaves open questions the government has not answered. What conditions would allow flying to resume, and on what timeline? Whether the measure meaningfully improves security or primarily signals control. For pilots and industry watchers well beyond China, the precedent matters. It offers a model of how a state can shut down an entire flying sector in response to one person's actions. From a single deliberate act, we turn now to the broader safety picture in business aviation. New accident data for the first half of 2026 show turbine business aviation fatalities holding flat. The count stands at 81, the same as the first half of last year. Despite a 50% drop in fatalities during the first quarter, the gain earlier in the year was erased by the months that followed. Analysts point to familiar problem areas. Stabilized approaches and runway excursions remain leading contributors. The last seconds of flight, the approach, and the departure continue to be where turbine operations are most exposed. 2 investigations sharpen the point. On June 14th, a Pacific Aerospace 750XL skydiving aircraft crashed in Butler, Missouri, killing all 12 aboard. The NTSB's preliminary report finds no evidence so far of engine failure, fuel contamination, or weight imbalance problems. That leaves pilot technique and operational factors under scrutiny, and a separate account of the same accident points to an aggressive takeoff maneuver as a likely factor in the fatal loss of control. The contrast comes from the NTSB's final report on the 2025 crash that killed aerobatic champion Rob Holland. There, the cause was mechanical. A loose elevator counterweight plug jammed the elevator, producing a total loss of pitch control on landing, a small piece of hardware, a catastrophic result. Together, the cases frame the two fronts of safety in this segment. One is operational discipline, stabilized approaches, disciplined takeoffs, a strong go-around culture. The other is mechanical integrity, where minor components carry outsized consequences. If the fatality numbers stay flat, operators and insurers may push for more, tighter standard procedures, expanded flight data monitoring, higher training requirements. And for charter clients who assume business aviation matches airline safety, the data are a reminder to ask operators pointed questions. The FAA has proposed ending its half-century ban on commercial supersonic flight over land. In its place, the agency would set a noise-based standard, a move that could reopen American skies to high-speed travel for the first time since 1973. Under the proposed rule, supersonic operations over land would be permitted if an aircraft can keep its sonic boom overpressure at or below 0.11 pounds per square foot at ground level. That shifts the test from a blanket prohibition to a measurable limit. Meet the noise threshold, and you may fly. The change is closely tied to NASA's X-59 demonstrator and to a new generation of low boom concepts from companies such as Boom Supersonic. Flight test data from the X-59 is expected to inform both the rulemaking and future certification standards. If adopted, this would be the first framework in roughly 50 years to allow routine commercial supersonic flight over the United States. The path is not short. This is a notice of proposed rulemaking, which means public comment, environmental review, and the prospect of challenges from noise-sensitive communities and environmental groups. Questions of fuel burn and emissions will follow, particularly as airlines weigh supersonic against net zero commitments. For manufacturers and airlines, the potential is significant. A workable standard could enable point-to-point routes, coast-to-coast in the U.S. among them, and force decisions on infrastructure, route economics, and certification. It also puts the United States in front. If it becomes the first major market to formalize a boom limit, that shapes where the next generation of high-speed aircraft is designed and flown. Ending a 50-year ban and replacing it with a number is a watershed moment in aviation regulation. Also in aviation news this week, a seaplane made a hard landing on New York City's East River early this month. A Kodiak 100 with 8 people aboard struck the water hard enough to snap a wing strut, prompting a rescue of all occupants. 2 people suffered minor injuries. There were no serious or fatal injuries. Both the FAA and the NTSB are investigating. The accident unfolded in one of the most densely populated urban environments in the country, where seaplane operators must manage bridges, ferry traffic, and confined waterways on every approach. On July 1st, a business jet collided with a box truck while taxiing at Raleigh-Durham International Airport. A Nicholas Air Embraer Phenom 100, registered November 356 November, struck the truck and sustained substantial damage to its nose section. There were no injuries to the 2 people aboard the jet or to the truck driver. The collision briefly closed the airfield, delaying or diverting approximately 15 flights. Operations resumed after about an hour. The NTSB is investigating the ground collision, including vehicle and aircraft movement on the taxiway. A training flight near Cordoba, Argentina, produced one of the more extraordinary incidents in recent memory. A 22-year-old student pilot safely landed a Cessna 150 after her instructor exited the aircraft in mid-flight, in what authorities are treating as an apparent suicide. Left alone at the controls without warning, the student managed to fly and land the airplane without injury. The case raises questions about monitoring instructor mental health in the training environment, where instructors often work under financial and workload pressure. It is an extremely rare emergency, with little procedural guidance beyond general loss of crew training. Finally, on July 4th this year, a Delta A319 on approach to Chicago Midway was struck by a firework mortar at roughly 200 feet above the ground. The aircraft landed safely, and all 58 people aboard were unharmed. Holiday fireworks near approach paths remain a recurring but underreported risk to arriving aircraft. That's This Week in Aviation. For the latest aviation news, visit aviatordb.com. I'm Mark Preston. We'll see you next week.